let's get started. So this week I'm really excited. So I'm going to ask you all to mute yourselves, if you wouldn't mind. This week I'm really excited to be able to honor the transition team, who you have been getting many emails from, who have been really instrumental in my getting settled at this moment. We had a meeting this afternoon, and really we're all feeling really good about how things are going, and I'm getting to meet everybody, and we're slowly building up to me getting a chance to be with everyone. And they have been working nonstop. They've been meeting 2 times a week, I think, for since the beginning of June, to get me ready, to get us ready to be together. So I'm so grateful for their help. And those folks are Carrie and Marla and Michael and Faye, and they are going to lead various parts of the service this evening. So I'm really excited to honor them and to thank them for all of their really hard work. So we're going to begin with Carrie, who's going to begin with a prayer on page 3, if you're following along at home.
Actually, I'm not on page 3. I've gone own plan.
Oh, you went on your own plan. Oh, I'm so excited. Great.
Which is not surprising to anyone.
No, but I'm still glad that you're here doing it.
According to tradition, Shabbat is not simply a good idea, but a mitzvah. The 10 commandments say, remember Shabbat and set it apart. 6 days you shall toil and do all your work, but the 7th day is the day of rest. In 11th century France, the medieval sage Rashi focused on a curious part of the commandment. 6 days you shall toil and do all your work. How, he asked, can you complete all your work in 6 days? Rashi understood what we still face today, that there is simply more work to get done each week than we can possibly manage. Said Rashi, when Shabbat comes, it should seem to you as if all your work is completed, even though it isn't. You should stop thinking about work. Friday evening is designed to help us perform this magic trick, to begin to act as if our work is done. Shabbat can free us to spend time with those we love, to savor small moments that usually pass unnoticed, freeing us to reflect on what matters most. The candles, readings, songs, and wine are all here to help us set the mood, creating an atmosphere of warmth. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Thank you, Carrie. That was beautiful. And now I would like to invite Marla to light the candles and we are on page 9. If somebody can send I don't know if somebody has done this already, but if not, can you send copy and paste the link of the Siddur into the chat so people can access it if they don't have it? And we'll begin with candle lighting.
Okay, go over. You gotta go.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'hadliker shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Praised are you, Holy One of blessing, who has made us holy through your mitzvot and has instructed us in kindling the lights of Shabbat.
Thank you, Marla. So this week is musical Shabbat, and I know that we can't be in person with a band, which is where I'm hoping we will go at some point in the future. Please God, may it come soon. Until then, I'd like to invite you all to make music in your own home. I know you are all a singing congregation. That's one of the first things I heard from Rich when I was thinking about when I was applying and going through the interview process. They said, Rich said, we're a singing congregation. We'll sing with you. And it's hard because I can't hear you, but I can see you. So I want to invite you, if you feel so inclined, to either grab a musical instrument, to get a spoon and a pot. That could be a drum situation, or tap on the table, tap your toes, clap your hands, whatever you feel like will bring some music and some joy into this Shabbat service. So we'll join together for Shir Ladonai on page 11. It's an appropriate psalm, Psalm 96, because it's talking about singing to God. So let's join together. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. We will continue on page 12 with Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lahar kodsho. I love the Psalms. I really love the Psalms because like every single one is about singing and praise, and it gives us a chance to really think about gratitude and the things in our lives that are good, even while things are so hard right now. So I love that we get to welcome Shabbat with these songs. It's really nice, and it's nice to be together. We will continue with Lecha Dodi, which is on page 14. La la lecha dodi, likra kala, pene shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi, likra kala, pene shabbat nekavela la la. Lecha dodi, likra kala, pene shabbat nekavela. Lecha dodi, likra kala, pene shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litchila la 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 lecha dodi, likra kala, p'nei shabbat nekavela, lecha dodi, likra kala, p'nei shabbat nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki makor haberacha מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה, לה 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 לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך, לה 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 לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. I invite you to rise and face the door to welcome the Sabbath bride, if you are able. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. We will now turn to page 17 for the Chatzi Kaddish, our moment of praise before more praise. So please join me. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, ve'almad yivarach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayetecho bet Yisrael. Bagala, uvizman kariv, ve'imeru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach, le'olam olal me'ol maya, yiparach, v'yishabach, v'yipa'ar, v'yitramam, v'yinaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, Shemei Kodesha B'richu Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tushbechata V'Nechamata Ta'amiran Be'alma Ve'imeru Amen. Please rise for Baruch Hu if that's become part of your custom while you're at home or if you are able. La 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la ya la la ya la 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 ya la ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamivorach, Hamivorach, Baruch Adonai, Hamivorach, Le'olam, Le'olam, Va'ed. Yadadadadai, praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due. Praise Adonai, to whom our praise is due, now and forever. Ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la. Ya la 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 la. We will pray together the words on the bottom of page 18. Praise be you, O God, our God, ruler of the universe. With your word you bring on evenings. With wisdom you open the gates of heaven, and with understanding change the times, alternate the seasons, and arrange the stars in their watches in the sky, according to your will. You create day and night. You roll the light away from darkness and darkness from before night. You cause day to pass and bring night, and differentiate between day and night. God's name is God of all hosts, the Almighty, who is living and enduring, will reign for us over us forever. Praise be our eternal God, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. We'll join together in Ahavat Olam on page 20. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Hukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadta, Otanu lemadta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbenu, Hukumeinu nasiach bechukecha, V'nismach b'divrei toratecha, U'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, Uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. V'ahavadcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'divarta bam, v'shibtecha b'veitecha u'lechtecha v'derech, u'shachbecha u'b'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yetem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher chotzeitzi etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, v'hiyot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. And next. So our next prayer is Michamocha, our prayer, which really comes directly, like the words are in Exodus. It's right there. And it is one of the few prayers that we change the melody to throughout the year. So this idea of Nusach is it's like this, the way that we tell the time of the Jewish calendar is also through the melodies of our prayers, which I love. And Nusach is like the type of singing or chanting that happens at certain times, right? So Rosh Hashanah, there are different sounds that we use. Na, 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 na. So we have different versions of Micha Mocha that we use throughout the year, which I think is great. There's a Passover one, there's a Hanukkah one, there's, the high holidays have one. So we're gonna sing the Miriam song version because it's a musical Shabbat, but I think talking about the way that music affects our prayer gives us an insight into who we are as a people. So I hope you will join me in Miriam's song, which is sort of here. Yeah, it's here. I see it now. All right, it's in the English at the top, but we're gonna do some Hebrew too. So let's join together. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song. Sing a song to the one whom we've exalted. Miriam and the women danced and danced the whole night long. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. I love that they're singing and dancing in the Torah. I think that's really beautiful because it gives us a chance to really to understand that that's part of our heritage, and that brings me quite a bit of joy, and I hope it is doing some of that for you this evening also. Hashkivenu is on page 26. Hashkivenu, the idea of spreading a shelter of peace, I think is really necessary and something that I continue to pray for. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from sorrow and hatred and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. L'chaim. We will now turn to the Amidah, the beginning of the Amidah, which we will find in our prayer books on page 51. I invite you to rise if that has become your custom or if you are able. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Ve'ofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Achar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh u'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please join me in Vishamru on page 55. You can be seated. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam brit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam brit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael ot hi le'olam, hi sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai et hashamayim et haaretz, ubayom hashvi'i shavad vayinafash, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, la'asot et hashabat ledorotam brit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat. I will turn to page 58, and last week I thought was really nice to read everybody's gratitudes and things they've been grateful for this week. So if you would care to share, I'll do a little Hebrew reading, join me in that, type your gratitude in the chat box, send something to somebody who you're grateful for what they've done. I'll just offer up my personal gratitude to Lorelai and Sarah for being the greatest colleagues. Let's think about that gratitude as we give thanks to God for our lives and for giving us this moment to give thanks. We give thanks to you, Adonai, our God, God of our ancestors, today and always, a firm and enduring source of life, a shield to us in time of trial. You are ever there from age to age. We acknowledge you, declare your praise, and thank you for our lives, which are entrusted in your hand, our souls, which are placed in your care, your miracles that greet us every day, and your wonders and the good things that are with us every hour, morning, noon, and night. Good one whose kindness never stops, kind one whose loving acts have never failed. We placed our hope in you. For all these things, your name be blessed and raised in honor always. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulacha na'eh lechodot. We'll spend a few minutes now in silent reflection. The prayers of your heart, the prayers on the page, prayers somewhere else in the book or from another book perhaps. And we'll gather back together in just a few. If you'd like to keep sharing your gratitude, I would appreciate it. And we'll gather back together in just a minute or two. Yehiyu leratzon imrefi vehyon libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri Adonai tzuri Megoali, May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my Redeemer. Okay. All right. I'm gonna get to the right screen here so I can share some things with you all. Let's see. What a weird thing to be playing with your computer during services. It's not something I ever really expected to be doing, but here we are. And I'm grateful for the technology. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. While we greet Shabbat this week with song and laughter, we also need to acknowledge that this has been a hard week to be a Jew in the world, and I'll get there. This week is the last Torah portion in the book of Numbers. It's actually a double portion. Matot Maaseh means that in order to squeeze in exactly what we need before Rosh Hashanah, we had to double up some things. We are approaching Deuteronomy, and we are getting ready to bid farewell to Moses, as the book of Deuteronomy is basically his long farewell to the people. This parsha is full of conversation about vows, laws to prepare for arrival into the land of Israel, and the follow-up to last week's story of Zelophehad's daughters, in which they actually inherit the land that they petitioned last week. There's also something really troubling in this parsha that I want to discuss. But first, let me say two things. As we move into this conversation, it's important to understand that we can take the Torah seriously, but not literally. And those of you who are B'nai Mitzvah families, I know I've said that, I think, to every single one, because it's true. It is something that we take seriously. Our tradition is serious. We hold on to that. We grasp onto it, but we may not take every word literally. Second, it is often our inclination to dodge talking about Torah portions that are complicated or problematic. For example, there are portions in Leviticus that talk about flaky skin diseases and bodily functions, and it's really a horrible situation to get that parsha as a bar mitzvah. But this particular parsha that we're reading tonight comes in the summer, so we don't necessarily discuss this part of it. We find it's easier to talk about the part about vows or Moses's future. So with that in mind, I'd like to share with you the thing that troubles me. And let me share my screen here. Okay. So in Numbers 33, starting with 50. In the steppes of Moab at the Jordan River near Jericho, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you shall dispossess all the inhabitants of the land. You shall destroy their figured objects. You shall destroy their molten images, and you shall demolish all their cultic places. And you shall take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have assigned the land to you to possess. You shall apportion the land amongst yourselves by lot, clan by clan. With larger groups, increase the share. With smaller groups, reduce the share. Wherever the lot falls for anyone, that shall be his. You shall have your portions according to your ancestral tribes. But if you do not dispossess the inhabitants of the land, those whom you allow to remain shall be stings in your eyes and thorns in your side, and they shall harass you in the land in which you live, so that I will do to you what I plan to do to them." So that's pretty troubling to me. I don't know if anybody else finds it troubling. I think the idea of God telling us dispossess the land, which I looked up, by the way, because I think it's really important to understand what God is saying to the people. So in this Torah portion, God instructs Moses to tell the Israelites that when they go to the promised land that they've been wandering around in the desert trying to find for 40 years, they should dispossess the inhabitants, destroy all their possessions, and take the land. Dispossess literally means take out from under them. I don't know about you, but this makes me uncomfortable. The idea that God's people are instructed to do this bothers me. And it's hard to talk about because I feel ashamed this piece of instruction exists in our holiest work that we hold up in such high regard. It also seems antithetical to our biggest belief that Jews should be repairing the world, not destroying it. I really don't have any answers to what this might mean. And many of the commentators that I typically rely on to craft a drash like this, including some of the more modern ones, brush over this passage to talk more in depth about Joshua and leadership transition, also really important. But there aren't a lot of explanations for what this means. And I have a theory. These commentators skipped over these verses because they maybe felt like I do, ashamed. Often when we feel shame, we avoid dealing with what is bringing us shame and we pretend it doesn't exist. So let's go back to the idea that it was a hard week to be a Jew in the world. We experienced some anti-Semitism coming from some really big places this week. Deshaun Jackson of the Philadelphia Eagles tweeted some anti-Semitic remarks. Nick Cannon, who's also a popular figure in pop culture, was involved in some anti-Semitic remarks. And these things were really scary. And the fact that they came from folks of color gives them an extra layer of unpacking for us to do. So I bring this up because one of the things that I think in a lot of predominantly white Jewish communities is that we don't talk about race and racism because we are almost ashamed that we don't have the language. Right now, I think we are doing a lot of work to make sure that we do have language. We're hearing about people reading, we're hearing about writing. And if this is something that you're interested in doing work on, it's something that's very dear to my heart. And mostly because I believe that people are built b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. So I'm willing to do that work with you if you want to do that with me. So I just want to address a few things that happened this week. The outcry from the Jewish community basically erased the idea that there can be Jews of color, right? So 15 to 20% of Jews in this country are Jews of color, and they are folks in all of our communities, but they aren't necessarily represented in our institutions, which is a separate but complicated and entangled conversation around what race and racism can look like in the Jewish community. So I want to say that first, that this conversation over the last 2 weeks has really been centered on white Jews. And then we have the question of whiteness, right? This is not something that's easy to talk about. It's not something that we are familiar with talking about. And many of us feel like, maybe I should know how to have this conversation already, and therefore I'm feeling uncomfortable with even starting it, which is why I bring it up here in this space, because I think as Jews, we have to really look at what we care deeply about, and we have to look at our values and think how we can apply this to the world and what it is that Judaism teaches us. So when we hear somebody say, I'm not white, I'm Jewish, it sort of undermines the idea that the identities, the very identities of non-white Jews, right? There are, and also in the same breath, I want to say that anti-Semitism is real and it is terrifying. And it is, you know, it has consequences. I am from Pittsburgh. I lost folks in the shooting at the Tree of Life. My parents live like a block away. And I know that anti-Semitism has consequences. We all know that. But it's also really important for us to make sure that our communities are full of people whose multiple identities can exist in one space. And I think talking about race and racism, we often don't have the words that we want to use. And I think for too long we have avoided this because we know there's some like connection to, you know, how we look at race and racism and Judaism, but we haven't quite unpacked all of it. And I would say that now is the time, you know, it's time for us to really have these deep conversations and think about what race and racism really looks like in the Jewish community. I also want to say that anti-Jewish and anti-Black hatred are inextricably linked. This is another really important piece of the puzzle of what happened this week. Anti-Semitism exists in the Black community, but I've also seen anti-Semitism in white communities. And the reality is that we also have some racism to look at in our white Jewish communities as well. So there are two things that I want to sort of take from this moment. One, shame, when you talk about it, it becomes less potent and less powerful. So if this is something with which you struggle personally to talk about, or you're not quite sure how to really even start a conversation or where to start, that's okay. Because the moment you say that out loud, it takes away the sting and it takes away some of the hold that shame might have. And I think that's true for everything that one might feel ashamed about. It certainly is for me, which is the reason why I wanted to bring up this piece of Torah, because this piece of Torah makes me uncomfortable and it makes me feel shame that it's in our holy book, right? The idea of us taking away land and dispossessing people instead of, you know, fixing the world is really uncomfortable for me, and there is some shame there. The other thing I want to encourage is for us to keep having these conversations, right? They are hard. They feel political in some ways, but I really think it's important to go back to the idea of what it says in Genesis, that everybody is created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, and therefore it is our responsibility as Jews to think about this stuff, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's hard, even if it's been politicized, because this is a conversation about how we treat other human beings, which is inherently how we are as Jews in the world, right? It is important for us to be present and to be Jews out in the larger community. So yes, this has been a hard week to be Jewish. And, you know, we're seeing people sort of take sides in this conversation about what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And there's so much nuance to this. And I'm happy to have follow-up conversations if that's something people want to do. But I do want to say one thing. As we go back to the Torah portion and really think about what it is that Torah provides for us, it is a guiding light. It is our benchmark. It is the thing that we can return to when we don't have answers. And so when there's something in the Torah that's problematic, it sort of adds this extra layer. So things are hard right now. But I want to share one other idea. This end of the Torah portion, this end of Matot Maseh, is the end of the book of Numbers. And when we come to the end of the book of Numbers, when we come to the end of any book of the Torah, we say a phrase, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. And in that phrase, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, you can hear the root word chazak. And I talked about this with some folks earlier this week, but repetition of Hebrew words is a tactic used for emphasis. So the idea of chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek is this, like, chazak means strong or strength. Be strong, be stronger, and strengthen one another. Nit chazek is the reflexive of that same verb. And it's almost like we're saying chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek after we finish a piece of Torah, because we're using it as a placeholder for until we can get to the Torah next week. And as I think about this difficult time in our country, we need strength more than ever. And we are not necessarily at an end, but at a beginning as a community, and also as people in this very difficult and very unique time. So I'm going to ask that we join together to strengthen one another, to really be strong and be strong for one another. We're gonna sing chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, because these crucial words will help us to strengthen each other by challenging the norms, by approaching hard topics with care for human beings on the other side. And my prayer is that our ideals and our Judaism and our values allow us to be the strength and for one another, and to be strong internally as our communities face these difficult moments, and as we come together to support one another as human beings. So please join me. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, be strengthened, and strengthen one another. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Maybe. If you know this one, please join me. We have come from near and far to raise our voice in song. And the more we join in the refrain, the more we feel strong. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. There is a power in this place and time. It shapes the rest of our lives. For when we return each year, we find the truth we can't deny. Be strong, let us strengthen one another. Be strong, let us celebrate our lives. Be strong, let us strengthen one another. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. As we sing, we link ourselves to those who came before. And we're one with all those yet to come. Our strength it will endure. Be strong, let us strengthen one another. Be strong, let us celebrate our lives. Be strong, let us strengthen one another. Chazak, chazak. Be strong, be strong. Chazak, chazak. V'nitchazek. Chazak. Chazak, v'nitchazek. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thanks for joining me on that difficult journey. I appreciate it. As we think about strength, it's a moment now to think about those who are in need of some extra strength this week, who are in need of healing, of body, of mind, of spirit. We think of those whose strength might be weakened because of sadness, of loneliness, of the idea that they might just need a little extra love this week. So let's join together in the Misha Berach blessing, our blessing for healing and strength for the people that we love in our community. We join together in our prayer, our Misha Berach prayer, our prayer for healing and strength on page 67. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We will join together in Aleinu on page 74. Please rise if it is your custom, if you are able. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula le'yotzer breshit, shelo asanu g'lei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kachem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. One of the great things that Shir Tikvah has happening right now is the enthusiasm is still here for our community. As we continue into the end of our service, into the Mourner's Kaddish, I feel really, really grateful for moments where we get to be together. And mourning is one of those moments where we need each other. Not only do we get to be together to say the Mourner's Kaddish, to remember those who we have lost, but we are required to, by Jewish law, be with people when we say this prayer. And so as we are in Zoom community right now, I invite you all to really to harness that power of our community as we remember our loved ones. We join together for our Kaddish Yatom, our mourner's prayer on page 78. Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalal v'yitalel shmei kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace bring peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved here in our beloved community and around the world. Together we say, Amen. For our closing song, we will join together in Olam Chesed Yibaneh, which you will find on page 75. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, the idea of building this world from love, of gathering strength this week, of talking about those tough things to make our world a better place. And I hope you'll join me. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, yadadai, dai, yadadai, dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, yadai, dai, yadadai, dai. I will build this world from love, yadadai, dai, yadadai, dai. And you will build this world from love, yadadai, dai, yadadai, dai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, yadadai, dai, then God will build this world from love, yadadai, yadadai, dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, yadadai, yadadai, dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, yadadai, yadadai, dai. So for our own egg, it is my pleasure to invite the other half of the transition team to lead us in the Kiddush and the Motzi, which you will find on page 70. No, that's where we are right now. 87. I wrote 78, but that's where we were already. So try again. And I would like to invite Michael to say the Kiddush, and Faye, who made some beautiful, lovely challah, to say the Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Amen.
Amen. L'chaim.
Motzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together, as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
B'tei Avon, Shabbat Shalom. That challah looks beautiful, Faye. I know that's one you made today. So,
Delicious.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure to be with all of you for a little musical Shabbat.